What up? Hood politics for eyeballs. How's it, me bro? I should start it like that. How's it? Because I'm going to talk about South Africa. Here's the thing. This is a You Wasn't Outside episode. And where that name came from is just this idea of, look, if you haven't gone through what we've gone through, if you weren't in the trenches with us, it came from gang culture, where the idea is like, if you were in the house, you didn't run the streets with us, so you haven't earned the trauma that we all have gone through to be able to speak on our experiences or even pass any legitimate judgment towards our choices because you haven't gone through what we've gone through, right? That's what the idea, you wasn't outside, right? And I was using it in terms to talk about Israel, Palestine, and specifically Hamas and Gaza, because a lot of the takes you see from Americans and Western sort of governments, although have changed recently, were showing a clear sort of indication that you have not suffered the way that the people involved in this have suffered. Like, you haven't gone through the things that they've gone through. And why I felt like I was able to talk a little more authoritative on the topic is not so much that I have gone through what they've gone through. I was even saying that about myself. Look, I wasn't there, but I've suffered through oppression and, you know, the violence of growing up in the 80s and 90s in LA, you know. So there's a part of me that was like, I do understand. But then there's a part of me that like, you know, hey, you guys stay in your lane. Now, if you take that to its international level, you have Bibi Netanyahu, right, who essentially is telling everybody in the world who got something to say, like, y'all, like, how are we the terrorists in this? How are we the problem? I don't understand how anybody got no, like, have y'all gone through the Holocaust? Like, do y'all know what we went through? They attacked us. I don't understand what everybody's problem is. You wasn't there. You haven't gone through what we gone through. You don't understand what it's like to be in the situation we in right now. And then one Kosai hand comes up from the back and says, bro, how's it? We understand. We are South Africa. Now, a few months back, South Africa brought a case to the International Court of Justice against the nation of Israel. Now, a little bit of history here. The International Court of Justice is a wing of the UN, which is the United Nations, which came from the League of Nations, which is because of the two world wars, right? At some point, we had to stop pretending like we weren't all together spinning on this one rock, right? And that nation states, borders are made up lines on the ground. We're all connected. What happens to one of us affects all of us because it's really only one planet. We have to stop pretending like the choices one of us make doesn't affect the rest of us. We have to stop pretending like that's not true because of World War II. So we got together this League of Nations and then ultimately the United Nations, just to be able to, like, at some point we have to interact and discuss choices each of us make. There is no one government, right, over the whole country. You're all sovereign. You all can do what you want to do, but your choices affect everybody else, right? And in that is this part called the International Court of Justice. What was so difficult and unique about the Holocaust in terms of modern nation states was the fact that it was carried out by the government. So it wasn't illegal. The government did it. That's not illegal. They make their own laws. So after the Nazis were defeated, how do you hold these people accountable? How do you, in what way, like in what court? There is no court, right? How do you There is no like, what's the justice? Like, how do you find justice? So we had to figure out a way as a species to be able to hold people accountable, nations accountable for crimes against humanity. Now, this particular International Court of Justice isn't about individual cases, individual people. This is about a nation bringing a case against another nation. And South Africa is saying, we actually know what we're looking at, and we're here to bring a case against the nation of Israel for genocide and crimes against humanity. Now, the next step is, if you're bringing this case, you have to prove it. Now, on the audio version, the ear version of this show, I'm going to go into the specifics of the cases, right? And the points each of them are making. But in this one, just to keep it shorter, and to make y'all go listen to the audio one, I'm gonna give an overview. Here's the thing. Words have to have definitions, right? You have to be able to define a genocide. There are some things that seem obvious to us, like, well, I mean, you were trying to, what are you talking about, right? Like, this is what's happening, right? But if you are going to hold me accountable in some sort of law, you need to be able to prove that there was a line that was crossed. Because what if this is just war? We're at war. People die, right? And again, Bibi Netanyahu being like, I can't stress this enough. I don't understand. We were attacked. Like, how is that? Why y'all bringing a case against us? Well, one argument is because Gaza is not a nation, it's a city, and Hamas is not a government because Palestine is not a nation. So there's that, right? But the argument is like this. Essentially, Israel's like, I may have got a little head, but I wasn't cheating. I say that to be a little silly, but there's this, for some reason, there's this idea among, at least when my generation was a little more in the Z age group, when we were that young, for some reason, there was this belief among us that if you don't actually have, this is supposed to be the kid-friendly version, intercourse, then it don't count as cheating. Like, that don't really count. If we just did other things, this is not really cheating. You can't say I cheated because I haven't had intercourse. Now, you and I, listening to this, understand that that's absurd. But at some point, you have to define your terms. Now, so Benjamin Netanyahu's like, you haven't, how you know? Okay, yeah, we killed a lot of people. Now, we done stopped aid from coming in. But again, we were attacked and we're defending ourselves. That don't mean it's a genocide. But now you got to define genocide. And quick and dirty, for something to be a genocide, it has to be towards a particular collective group, whether it's ethnic, religious, regional, and there has to be an intent to remove them from existing. There has to be an intent of, and you have to be able to say that I can prove your intent, that you are trying to wipe them out, right? And why South Africa is so unique in being able to say this is apartheid. You'd have to know a little bit more about the history of apartheid and why they feel like they can look at the way that the air quotes two-state solution, which hasn't happened yet, but the two states in Israel and Palestine, they can look at that and go, that's an apartheid. Like, we know what we're looking at because we lived under one. I'm going to let you do your own Googles as to how apartheid looked. But there is two types of citizens. One has more rights than the other. And that's not based on anything except for an ethnic prejudice. That's what it's based on. So they're like, no, we know what we're looking at. And here's our receipts. Boom, 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 boom. This is why we think this is a genocide. And we're bringing this case to the International Court of Justice. And what we found among the nations of the world is that most nations from the global south, I'll let you Google that or listen to it on the audio version, kind of all agree. Whereas most nations from the global north, in a lot of ways, see themselves a lot more similar to the nation of Israel. And Israel's arguing the legitimacy of their existence. They're arguing from the big dog perspective, where it's like everybody want to take a shot at the big dog. Like, look, just because we up, you know what I'm saying? Everybody taking shots at us. They took a shot at us. And why are you mad at us for clapping back? Again, South Africa's going, oh, that's much more than a clapback. And you know it. And then it turned out that the international courts agreed. To an extent. Now, what does that mean for Israel? Does that mean that Israel needs to stop the war? There needs to be a ceasefire? What, do they get fined? Like, what? Like, how do you enforce something like this? We gotta listen to the audio version of that one. Hood politics, y'all.